Hey everybody, it's Neil Parfit here. Welcome to video 29 of the continuing fiddles and exploration of the ER-301 sound computer. Currently this is OS version 0.2.13. This is sort of picking up from where we left off on the previous video with custom units, because I feel out of all the units, this one's the most powerful unit because you can sort of self-contain a whole bunch of units together and have localized controls that can feed all sorts of processes within. So the potential for just manipulation of signals is fantastic. So someone was on the forum talking about harmonic oscillators, so I thought I'd give one a shot. Haven't spent a lot of time on this, but this is just to give another idea of how you can use these custom units and the internal local controls. So let's take a look. Here's my collapsed custom unit on channel 1, and this is the only thing I have running on the system right now. It's all self-contained in this, and I have one global control, which I'll get into later, but regardless, it's pretty much 95% standalone, just as this one custom unit. And that's available by a single preset that I can save and load and insert anywhere in the system if I want to have it pre-effects or whatever. Needless to say, it's really easy to store and recall because it's a single preset. Whew. Okay, so let's take a look and see what we have. As we discussed before, if you create a custom unit and you edit controls, you can create all sorts of different control inputs here. It can be gates, pitch control, toggle switches, faders, all that kind of stuff. So I have one here called gate, and that's literally just my keyboard assigned to it, receiving that gate. I have a volt per octave input, which is pretty self-explanatory. It's basically the pitch tracking from my Waldorf keyboard here. And then let's just, before we get to the next bit, let's just open this up and take a look. Within this custom unit, I have, if we expand this, I have 8 mixers, and right at the end of the whole thing, I have a standard VCA with an ADSR, and the input of that is our gate. So basically, if I press my keyboard, opens the gate, triggers the ADSR, and we have an envelope created to open and close this VCA, like a standard synth voice. If we quickly take a look again, in one of these mixers, very simple setup. I have a sine wave oscillator, and each one is tuned, the fundamental frequency is tuned between all of them to give me the harmonic series. And all of these, the volt octave control, is our local volt per octave control sitting on the front of the unit. So what that means is if I assign my keyboard as the pitch at the front, like base parent level of that unit, all these oscillators within assigned to this volt per octave local control will get the exact same tuning, which is what I want. Otherwise, you'd have to fumble around and figure it out. Then, moving onwards, I have 2 VCAs. One is controlled by these local controls that I've labeled 1 to 8. Those are on and off toggles, so it's basically an open or closed VCA. And the VCA right after that, I have these faders called DB 1 to 8, which are acting as volume controls, and that's giving me my volume control per oscillator voice, I guess you could call this. So at the end of the day, without really having to think about anything, at the topmost level of our unit, I have these 1 to 8 sort of toggle buttons, and that is turning on our harmonic. And there's our fundamental. And what I've done, if we keep scrolling, I have these 8 dB faders. The last 4 of them, 5 to 8, I have them individually controlled, so I can just go in and adjust those levels to taste. But because I have 4 LS1 light strips here, I have the first ones set to my external CV inputs right over here. So basically these first 4 strips will control the volume of the first 4 harmonics. So and the cool thing about the LS1s is I can take a move and record, I think it's up to an 8-second cycle that will just be free running. So I can get some interesting interactions between these different oscillators. So I'll just record these freely and we'll see how this sounds. And there's no sync to any of these, they're just sort of running. So we'll see what happens here. So that's 3, and then I'll do a more drastic one here. That's 4. So if I play a note now, we're sort of getting some interesting morphing between the oscillators. So the sound's never static. Ideally, if I had 4 more of these LS1s, I could control all these volumes externally. But don't forget, it doesn't have to be an external source. It could be an internal source. It could be, you could have a global chain of white noise or pink noise, a sample and hold right after it being triggered every so often, and you could have an envelope follower after that to create these random sort of sweeping CV moves that you could then assign to one of these faders. So you'd always get like a weird sort of fluctuation in volume of a harmonic. But that's for another day. So here is our basic harmonic oscillator. Now the one thing that let me turn this one on. Now the one thing I've added to this that I didn't mention before, this is another one of, I love that sequential switch thing that Joe came up with, and I've integrated it here, and I'll show you what I've done. And I have more ideas for this later, but I'm gonna have to create another video after I test it out. If we go to our min area, and global chains, I have one global chain called C, which is basically C for clock. Within that, tap tempo unit, and within that, I have a sine wave unit feeding it, and I have it set so my modulation wheel on the Waldorf can speed up and slow down this sine wave. And I don't want to get into the technical details of this again, but it's all on the forum. If you search for sequential switch, Joe has outlined it great with his own videos and diagrams. But what I've done here is I had one little surprise up my sleeve. So if we go to the width control of this tap tempo, I actually have it set so this master clock thing is actually cycling between all 8 of those oscillators sequentially. So check this out. And I could make this more static arpeggio if I just turned off all this automation and just had these volumes fixed. And I could go into the custom unit. I could turn off stages. I might have to turn up my volume actually, but let me just turn up my volume, sorry. And I still have control over those VCA volumes. So just one idea is like a really simple sequential harmonic oscillator. And again, if I go back into my global chain, adjust this width control of these pulses, sort of blurs it all together. And if you have it set to 1, eventually all those steps just sort of blur together. And it just sounds like a stable voice. Oh, you know what this sounds like, actually? So there you go, just a simple idea for a harmonic oscillator. The next thing I'm going to try before I create another video is, instead of having it sequential, using Joe's other method where you can CV address each step. And my idea for that would be to have it, you could either have like a ramp wave controlling it, so it's a sequential thing. If we added a sine wave to control those switches, it'd be a pendulum back and forth sort of scenario. And if we did pink noise followed by a sample and hold, then it'd be sort of a random. So there's all sorts of potential, especially when you start speeding those up to audio rates, of getting really interesting sounds. And again, all contained in a single custom unit that you can apply anywhere in the 301's processing architecture. All right, well, hopefully that spawned some ideas, and I'm going to keep plugging away at my other oscillator idea. All right, take it easy. Bye.